The headlines, the stories, the news. In-depth analysis of national current affairs.
Studio.
Freshly pressed on smooth.
Good morning, Lagos. Smooth breakfast with Folu and Valentine and Rotus, and we're joined in the studio by our wonderful, amazing analyst on a Good Friday, Miss Ireti, Bakare, Yusuf. Good morning.
And I have Rotus sitting next to me today, so my elbow, elbow, that elbow.
You're gonna need it.
Ready.
You're gonna need it.
I'm gonna need it. And we're matching actually.
Yes, we are. You can see us matching. You can see us matching if you're following us on YouTube.
All right, yeah. And Nwaji, good morning.
Morning, Lagos. Valentine Ohu. How are you guys doing?
Why'd with the
Why'd
came through strong.
To our people, they're on that camera.
Good.
Camera one.
Hey, people.
Camera two.
People, if you want to know the cameras, go over to youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. It's that simple. And get ready to tweet at us. Use the hashtag freshlypressed981 and send in your messages to us on our WhatsApp number, which we will tweet to you. So again, that hashtag is most important. It is freshlypressed981. You have to put it all in. There you go.
Let's dig right in. ThisDay has this first story. Media urged to tread with caution on national security. So security agencies in the country have urged the media at a parley in Abuja held not to allow the country to become a playground for terrorism and destabilization. So the senior special assistant to the president of media and publicity, Malam Garba Shehu, said the security agencies had given assurances that they would maintain a balance between openness and national security. They are accusing the media of inflating certain issues of national security in the country and being really manipulated by certain agencies that are not registered, and are calling on media agencies to be really prudent with some of their stories. Nwaji.
I actually just truly wonder who they're actually speaking to when they say media houses. Are the media houses that are actually registered, or
including
media houses that are
tabloids?
regulated? Yeah, but then I could be a media house with a phone. If I'm able to uncover mass killings happening in certain parts of the country, I can blast that thing on any social media platform anytime I want and get millions and millions of hits. Are you now going to tell me that as a media person I should have more responsibility to not report the truth? Come on, man.
But you know what I think this came from?
What?
What's his name? Danjuma made a speech. Yeah, that's what it was. So Danjuma made a speech the other day where he literally said that you can't trust the army, that they were complicit. And I think that's I'm suspecting that's what sort of.
But even outside of
that,
I think every morning when we come here and we sit and we do Freshly Pressed, we ourselves, I know I've had to do it several times, call out different newspapers for putting deliberately sensational
headlines.
And I think that's what's being addressed, is that sometimes in the bid to sell paper or to see stories that are deliberately skewed in one direction. That if the media is going to report, should the media not be reporting on all the facts available as opposed to one set?
Okay, so my issue is that because I am a fundamental believer in freedom of speech. So the question now becomes, how do you counter narrative such sensational stories? I think that needs to be the question above whether or not you regulate people wanting to spread false information. That's just going to happen. I do appreciate the sentiments behind sensationalism and what that can run against. So what you have to do to counter that is get very creative with regards to how you ensure you are constantly on the side of the truth and on the side of facts, especially now with the unregulated nature that the globe has moved towards with regards to reporting stories. The only thing you can do is just focus on facts and fact check everything and counter it and just
pay attention to detail.
Can I just very quickly
support? But to regulate it, Folu, is going to be very, very difficult to do. That's just my point on that.
That's why we have bodies like the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation.
Exactly.
Well, no, I'm not even going to depend on those people because really, let's stop it. They really don't make a difference. I'm going to go back. They don't. Let's stop lying to ourselves. They really don't. If they did, it's a whole different debate. But what you've always had.
In your opinion, Mr. Ireti, in your opinion.
Well, that's what I'm here to give.
Okay, cool.
My opinion. Why are you stating the obvious?
The NBC, we had a, big brother.
That is what I'm here to do. Now, thank you. Very quickly, Nwaji, you will agree that in history, you've always had media that's divided. So you'll often have a media that's sort of facing the left and a media that's often facing the right. And the whole point of journalism, all journalists skew, or should I say, they write their story in a particular way in order to shape the mind of the reader. What the problem I have with the likes of the NBC is, when I've voted somebody in, oh, stop it, Rose, and stop being a jelly baby, right? When I've voted somebody in a public servant, you then say to me, I am not allowed to go on air and criticize him. You say you must mollycoddle him.
Should be treated as such a responsibility, and you should
that's
stay
the
true to the
word,
facts of it.
responsibility.
Yeah.
Issues of national security, the media houses themselves decide on what
Should be treated as such a responsibility, and you should
that's
stay
the
true to the
word,
facts of it.
responsibility.
Yeah.
they should put out and what they shouldn't, because
Correct.
we do understand that it is important. I think this is really just appealing to the intellect of people who are in media houses.
Where they're gonna find that?
Okay, but let me
Moving
just,
on.
before we move on, just very, very quickly to this point, Folu.
Yeah.
When this happens abroad, you name and you shame. You call out very particular media houses that haven't been known to sensationalize, and that's why I started off with this point. When you say media houses, who are you referring to? So that's just the point I was trying to make, is that if you're going to do this, then you call out the particular media houses that you have concerns with.
And then as a way of closing this, really, it's actually an appeal back to them. So when certain stories come on the news and you reach out to certain agencies for their own take on certain stories, they should actually be willing to open up and tell us the truth.
Exactly.
Anyway, so moving on, this next one is from Punch. Defaulters in final rush as tax amnesty ends tomorrow. That's from the Punch. Remember, the finance minister, Mrs. Kemi Adeosu, last week had said rushing and asking as well, in the same sense, for an extension of the amnesty period, really, for the V8 program to regularize the tax. Nwaji.
I mean, I thoroughly enjoy this. I enjoy it for a number of reasons, because I am a big believer that the best way for the government to earn revenue is through tax. You have the most developed countries in the world that actually get huge sources of income from their people through tax incentives. Now, before I get any responses from individuals, yes, I know what that tax is meant to go towards, developing roads and infrastructure, etc. I get that, but can we at least start somewhere to get the ball rolling? That's the most important thing. So when you now look at the context of what the Voluntary Assets and Income Declaration Scheme, VADES, is doing, it's pretty much trying to synthesize the process and get people listening to the fact that, listen, you have to actually pay tax. If you have facilities or properties that you own, or if you have income that is not declared, do the right thing, do the responsible thing, and at least let the federal government know, so that we can now begin to create different revenue sources beyond our natural resources, so that we can actually begin to develop the nation. Whether or not we do, that's a secondary conversation, and we can hold people accountable to, but at the same time, let us begin the process of collecting tax revenue. It is a very, very vital system for the economy to thrive.
Totally agree with you, Nwaji. But let me ask you this: if you think about AMCON, right, the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, they've had to, I think the House of Reps are looking at new rules that will allow AMCON be able to sort of quicken the justice system in order to go after corporations and individuals that owe debts. That's debts, right? If you look at this particular story, they're saying that yes, they're going to name and shame, and then they're also going to prosecute. In the past, we've had newspapers that have published the names of people who owe money. We've had a slowdown in justice. And do you think that this is going to be any different from past attempts of the federal government to collect, as far as debts, or I'm substituting debts owed now with taxes now?
Right.
Do you think it's going to be effective?
Well, the reason why I think this would be is two things. One was the grace period that was given from the beginning was a lot of time. This thing has been going on for about 10, 11 months now. That's number one. And then number two, there's also been indications of tax that if you could now be prosecuted, unlike before, where your names were just like blasted in the papers and everything else just happened. So it was more of an offensive kind of situation. This is more of a charm offensive with regard asking you to declare whatever estate you have and the revenue. So I would hope, voters, that this encourages people to do the right thing, because it is not punitive. It is more collaborative with individuals to say, look, let's work together towards we have a better system of collecting tax. So I'm optimistic, and we'll just see.
My very quick question then.
Yeah.
Has anybody asked Mrs. Adeosu if she's declared her own?
Whoa.
Oh.
Well, if
Oh,
you're,
come on.
Shots fired.
if you're putting stones at glass houses, really, you should check yourself.
Come on.
That program,
And that of her colleague.
so that amnesty period has been extended, as has been.
The people selling akara on the sides of the roads, the number of people that sell a number of things. What about the government's efforts to make sure that they
We're
widen
not going
the
to have
tax
it on
net?
this to Business
No,
Express.
but VADES, VADES actually applies to them as well. So it's for people that have properties, it actually has different support and actually report that. And they've been quite aggressive going out there, speaking to these individuals that you've spoken about, giving them the forms that they need to fill out, the registration documents. So it actually applies to anyone in that particular informal capacity. So it's for everyone. It's not just for rich people.
Interestingly, though, the offices are closed today and Monday. So for those
Valentine, you know their hotlines are open. Right?
on the website.
And you think I'm going to spend my credit calling them?
It's toll free.
They can go on the website, it's v8.gov.ng, and just try to regularize it online. So very quickly, you take we have messages coming in.
No, let's move on to the next story for time reasons.
The next story from Punch is what happened yesterday. So Lagos residents heading to their workplaces, to other destinations yesterday morning, were stranded. People trekked. Now, the one that I find really interesting, besides the social media comments and memes, are people who were asked to walk from the gate on Airport Road to the terminals with their luggage.
Shocking.
Okay,
That again, sorry, let's play devil's advocate, guys, because that also happened when we had a lot of bomb scare threats. You had to do that trek, so the trek is
I think what he's saying is it's not about the trek, and because that was an emergency.
I know, that's what I was just pointing at. I know, just pointing it out. Because even when they were fixing the road, when they were building things, they had to trek at that airport road a lot of times.
I'm going to point myself referee.
Thank you.
Okay. Because Reuters and Ireti are about to go at it. Right,
and
but we're
Folu
not
has
going to go
backed
at it because we don't have enough time, sadly, and this is part of my problem with the NBC. Just give us and let us speak what you want to speak. Anyway, so very quickly, answering your questions first, Valentine, about those people who needed trek, they have my utmost sympathy. However, that is the fault of the airline because all flights yesterday were delayed. I think they were moved to the afternoon.
Yeah,
so they should have texted their people to say, sir, ma, please, you do not need to come in early. We are moving the flight to whatever time. Please come at this time. So that's really, really unfortunate. I do feel for them. That's number one. So here we go. We start to hold ourselves responsible. That's number one. Number two. For those people who had to walk, the masses as we call them, my brethren who had to walk to work, I blame their bosses. Because we all got the memo. The memo was, the onset in that memo was, we know we're not really smart. You know, we know we're not really good at managing this thing. However, this is the best we can do. So please be warned. They don't need to say we're not smart because we don't expect that. We know they're not smart. We're not very good at we're not good at traffic management, otherwise you would not be going through this. They're saying we already know that. You guys know that. Take that as it may. However, this is the best that we can do. Now, in life, as I say to my child, and I will say it again, and you don't have to care about it or like it, there's the best effort, as best as I can, and the middle ground. The best effort, the worst effort, and as best as I can. And this is as best as I can that it gave us. This is the best we can do now. Everybody keeps comparing it to when GEJ came in. No, when GEJ came in, we were not warned. When Tony Blair came in, we were not warned. You name it, every time.
No, I did. It was a little bit shocking.
That's right. We were not warned. So the point is, once you have given me 72 hours warning in advance, you have the power to be able to.
Number three, the fact that the notice was not enough meant that people who
How long is enough for you, Reuters?
People who are not civil servants still had to go about their business, and the planning, the onus of the planning should not be on us, the people. The onus of the planning should be on the federal government, who is bringing the president.
So the state government to plan your life for you.
Who is bringing the president here? They should have made sure that the route that he was passing through did not disrupt as many people as possible.
And they publish it, Reuters. We don't, and this is my point.
As a result of that, you do not put that onus on disrupts human people's lives.
But what would you? The only thing I think they should have done was to take him around in a chopper. That they should have done, and that would have made a lot of sense. However, Reuters, the question goes: how much is enough notice for you? You've got to be able to answer
we'll
that
have
yourself.
That question there. It's food for thought for next time.
Very quickly, a couple of comments that have come in. This is in from Big T, who says, media, you can't regulate the media. You might middlemen them for a while, but information will eventually flow out. And to counter sensationalism, every media outlet must fact check everything that they put out, empower the judiciary, sue over fake news, but you cannot stop the flow of information, especially not now with the internet, says Big T. Thank you very much. Up on Twitter, I know a couple of messages, and they will all start flooding in shortly. Al Hassan says, I wish a common man man like me would have what it takes to sue the government for the rubbish of the highest order that happened yesterday. I hope top lawyers are going to support me on this. Al-Mustafa, you can actually sue. This is the other thing as well.
That's it.
When
You can.
individuals just continue to make mouths on social media and not take action, we will continue to experience such things. So if you have good grounds, go consult a lawyer. You can take this matter.
However, it's quite expensive to sue. But anyway, go ahead.
No, it's okay. You'll find, for example,
You'll find
Serap, for example. They're a group of lawyers and civil rights group.
Exactly,
and a lot of the stuff they do is pro bono. So please go.
There's the Office of the Public Defender as well.
When you sue the federal government,
The local government.
When you sue the government, I don't care whether it's federal or state. You start to make them know that you care about issues that you have.
I
So
agree.
I totally agree. We all agree. I want you to sue
Ireti won't let me
first.
speak, but yeah, follow the point. There you go.
Okay, time.
Rochester's to sue first.
The next story, please. Next story.
All right, so there are illegal refineries in Delta State, or in Rivers actually. They were discovered by the Navy. The Nigerian Navy said it discovered 6 new illegal refineries. Now, what's shocking about this is the capacity they produce seems to be more than what Nigeria produces as a whole. They discovered one that produces. One produces.
Y'all a trip this morning, boy.
Just one of them produces about 4 million liters per day. Nwaji, please, let's go into this.
Okay, Valentine, you should not have prefaced it that way. All right?
Sorry.
It is not more than Nigeria produces a day. Liters and not in barrels. We just did the computations,
Exactly.
all right? But it is quite significant when you do look at the amount of oil that these guys are producing. When you do the calculations, it talks about you have 1 million liters of refined oil, and in some other cases it's 3 million. So when you do the computations of that and you now convert it to barrels, you're looking at about 6,300 barrels per day that are coming out of this situation, which is actually 0.3% of our current output, which is quite significant when you think about this is coming from an illegal refinery. So the Navy has actually done quite a lot of work destroying of the networks that allow them to refine and distribute this petroleum product and season the product and then taking it to DPR for quality checks, etc., etc. So this is a step in the right direction. Is this new? No. These guys have been illegally bunkering for God knows how long. So finally they're doing something about it so that they can actually stop the situation. But I have a different spin on it for me. My whole thing is that with individuals like this who have set up quite significant infrastructures, number one, how do they even set these things up? Where do they get the intelligence, the infrastructure, the equipment, or the technology to do it? So my whole thing is, as opposed to destroying it, why don't you bring them on board?
Exactly.
That's just my own perspective.
Exactly.
I know a lot of people will disagree with me, but
Because,
that's just what
yeah,
I see.
why
confiscate
confiscate it?
Why confiscate it?
Shut it down.
Well, the government keeps saying that they're going to do that, but they haven't really taken any thing that Oshibajo keeps mentioning. They've been going
It's something
to be
he
interesting.
keeps mentioning.
Well, it is PRG.
No, I
so
support
we'll
them. I don't think everybody supports that perspective.
see. Government move.
Right, but the thing is, the government does not have the capacity to. Thank you for that. That was the point I was scribbling down, so you've made my point.
Thank you. I think we're done.
We do have to move on. We see a couple of messages coming in up on our YouTube channel. Big shout out to Tunde Okufi, Big Cliffs, who's watching from home. He says, Dangote's daughter's wedding made it abundantly clear to me that Lagos, and by extension Nigeria, belongs to just a few. Yesterday, it was
Correct.
ridiculous.
Yeah, you know he was in traffic that day, and he didn't find it funny.
It was not a laughing stock. Sorry about that. But let's keep it moving very quickly. Up next, the Senate throws out El-Rufai's $350 million loan request. That's in from the New Telegraph. And as we go to the details of this story, Ms. Ireti, I'm going to come to you for your take on this. So yesterday, we're told that they rejected the request of Kaduna State government to secure a World Bank loan of about $350 million US. It was contained in the external borrowing plan of President Muhammad Buhari, and the rejection followed the presentation and consideration of the report of the Senate Committee on Local and Foreign Debts on the Kaduna State Development Policy Operation. Very quickly to you, Ms. Ireti, what's your take?
Very quickly, it would appear that El-Rufai's brethren from Kaduna are not agreeing. 3 senators spoke on this, and apparently all 3 actually agreed that it should the loan should not be approved. In fact, one of them went on to say that they had done a private investigation and which showed that the state government was planning to use the funds for purposes other than the ones originally stated in the request. Wow. Mr. President is a quote here. Mr. President, one is amazed, perplexed, and in shock to find that what the governor has gone ahead to indicate to the general public is completely different from what we found on the application of the facilities, as indicated in the detailed drawdown table. It goes on. It goes on, as a representative of my people, I'd like to say that the application of that loan is a misplaced priority. I strongly stand behind the prayers of the chairman of the committee that this very important chamber do reject that request for a loan. And it goes on. Honestly, it's so I think El-Rufai needs to sit with his brethren in Kaduna and just ask, what's going on? Okay, how do I begin to win you guys over? Because as everything with politics is about negotiating, strategizing, winning people over, etc., he happens not to have won many. In fact, he seems to have, what's the word? Created loads and loads of enemies. This is really bad. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think although with the way the system is set up right now, the states should have their own independence and be allowed to borrow the money that they need for their own purposes.
Or raise it through the capital market.
Thank you. Or raise it. That's what exactly what the stock market is set up for. So the thing is, it's sad that we have a system where the Senate is actually dictating whether or not a state can actually be able to borrow money for whatever it needs to do. A state, Detroit. Look at Detroit in the United States. They're bankrupt right now. Right? Mr. Ireti, let me finish, please. If the system should be the states. Unfortunately, that's not the system we have. But the states.
But we're a federal country, so that's how it's supposed to be.
Exactly. So unfortunately, it's disheartened me that this happened. But it is what it is. But it shouldn't be like this.
But what you also often have is a bit like the way we've been discussing state policing and everything. What you may end up getting, and we know it's happened in Nigeria, what you end up getting is the government becomes a god, and it then has the overall power, if you like, to actually direct everything. That's
what the military is for.
No, it's not what the military is, because that's what happens in Nigeria. One of the arguments here, if you look at this El-Rufai story, is that the state is already indebted. I'm not on anybody's side, so let's put that out there. Is that the state already has a debt of $232.1 million and is asking for a loan facility of $350 million. Now, I get what you're saying, that you should be able to go to private sector, etc., etc. But we know what also happens with private sector in this country. Look at what happened with that mobile, because you guys are not going to want me to mention their name.
Yes.
That was a private sector consortium loan that was brought together, and it was not only was it badly arranged, it was badly managed. People made money from it, and people have ended up losing their jobs. So we have to stop comparing things that work. I'm not disagreeing with you. It may work in the West because you have checks and balances, but here, highly unlikely. You leave this to the governor to decide, and we'll end up in trouble.
Henry Manuel has his opinion on WhatsApp. It says the V8's website is open, but what of internal revenue services of more than 17 states who do not have any useful online presence? It's one thing to declare V8s, it's another to pay your tax liability to your state of residence, and I can confirm that there are less than 10 states that provide online payments. The capacity of IRS of most states is non-existent. The Joint Tax Board should do something about it.
Well,
Agreed.
While up on YouTube, a couple of more comments are coming on our live chat. Abiodun Fatai says, yesterday's shutdown in Lagos because of one man was a total no-no for me. Abandoned my car to trek from Agege to airport. I will say this, enjoy it while it lasts, because I have my weapon, that is my PVC card. While Olatunde Alawa says that Rotus, the issue is that the loan is in US dollars, which must be guaranteed by the federal government.
Absolutely.
But we keep it moving very quickly. Up next, the EFCC charges Heritage Bank MD Sekibo to court over an alleged fraud of 605 million naira. Now, the general gist of this is that arraignment hasn't happened yet. The court hasn't set a date for arraignment, but there are about 4 different charges here, and it's not a very good look, really. Nwaji, over to you.
It's not a good look, especially when you now begin to get into the details of the story. Typical money laundering situation where a bank cahoots with a property company to now flush money through it so that they can just now recoup it. But, guess what? You got found out, and now you are being exposed by it. This thing happens all the time, especially in the private sector, and it goes back to the larger conversation about corruption. We talk about corruption within the federal government, but corruption in the private sector is just as rampant, as this particular case has pointed out. And this is a situation where you used instruments of the financial services industry to now siphon money for your own personal gain through two different companies. Quite bad, quite an indictment on the managing director, Sekibo, and also the companies in name. So this has to obviously go to the court. They will come through with their defendants and then with their defense, and also make arguments as to what that money was actually used for. And, we'll betide them if they're not able to prove it, then the law will definitely come after you hard and fast.
Moving on very quickly, the federal government unveils a new curriculum for history. That's what the Guardian newspaper is putting as a headline, and a number of other papers have this as well. The focus of the curriculum, according to the Minister for Education, Adamu, is hinged on various aspects of the major themes of Nigerian history, with emphasis on the ties that bind us, and in particular, the study of heroes and heroines in Nigeria over the age. That has also been given prominence. Now, they say that copies of the curriculum have been circulated across the different states for immediate adoption. I did search online. I could not locate any copy of this curriculum, because it would be nice to know the specifics. Miss Ireti, your thoughts?
If Miss Ireti said that now, they'll be like, oh, Miss Ireti. That's it. You know, that's it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, my darling sister, Folu. But it's true. But what, because we've got to rush, the quote I want us to discuss is, he goes on to say, the minister said, with this, we believe that Nigerian children will be better prepared for tomorrow and the task of nation building. There we go again. No. Just teaching them, just changing the curriculum of the history lesson is not what's going to build make Nigerian children nation builders of tomorrow.
Make Nigeria great again.
It's not. Thank you. It's not going to make Nigeria great again. There are so many other things that you need to do, sir, that you need to, and you know, we're getting to a point, and this is where, you know, let me just tell people, Reuters and I often agree on a lot of things. This is where I also agree with Reuters in the sense that we plaster over so many things without actually, how do you say, rebuilding the foundation and putting in a stronger foundation, if you like, dam-proof and all these other layers. And that's what they're doing here again. I'm all excited that we're going to be teaching history, but
do I have 20 to 10 seconds?
No.
Five.
Yeah.
Five
We can
seconds.
do this on YouTube.
Yes.
So guys, we are done.
we can't do the Benin story.
No, we're done with that. But we'll discuss it up on our YouTube channel, so make sure you go subscribe now. And shout out to Noel S, who sent in this last message on YouTube. He says the government won't bring the illegal refineries on board simply because the money has to share. The number of people who will want a cut on the road from illegal to legal oil business shrugs, he says. And we're done.
Good morning, Lagos.
The headlines.
Yeah, so are we going to do the Benin story now?
Yeah, we can talk about it now. So
how does this YouTube thing work?
Just talk.
No, we just continue. So guys, so very quickly, the last headline, right? Curse of Benin. Italy-based human traffickers.
No, you don't.
No, I don't. Italy-based human traffickers dies, and 2 robbers also die in their sleep. So the story is basically about 3 different persons from Edo State who are now based in Napoli in Italy, reportedly died as a result of the curse placed on human traffickers by the Benin monarch.
Isn't it insane though? You see, so this is but this is my thing with this story. Why am I still wearing headphones?
I don't know.
But, so he's basically, this is how you say, the absurdity of believing in curses.
Right.
You know, and that's where myself and my brother wrote us really tight.
Curses are not real.
They're not real.
There's no such thing as curses.
The Kabiyesi of
Juju
Benin,
is
the
fake.
Oba of Benin, Oba,
It's all
what's his
fake.
name? What's his name? Don't
the
start
Oba,
saying
the
it's
Oba.
fake.
Go
Go ahead, put the hex on me. Go ahead.
Well, like, let me step away.
That's why you don't have a wife. That is why you don't have a wife. I want you married.
Make me not show up to work on
I
Monday.
want you married. Well, that's just simple. That's easy. An Okada can do that. No. All we need is please make him married. Now then you'll be proven.
What if I don't want to get married?
That's what I'm saying. Okay, so let me just say,
anyway.
Oba Ewuare the second had come out about a couple of weeks ago, a month ago or so, and he had basically lifted off the curses that apparently is what these traffickers hold. They used to actually hold down the people that they traffic. And so he's basically lifted the curses. And then I think it was last week, or was it this week sometime, he then invited the market women out of the blue, invited them to his palace. And he basically placed the curse reverse on all the traffickers. So apparently traffickers are now dying in Italy. Poor Italy, they're not going to have enough space to bury people.
Place a curse on our corrupt leaders.
Exactly, that's
place
my
a
point.
curse on
Why
illegal refineries.
Exactly. Why couldn't
place
you have
a curse on
all
bad
the people
leadership.
who have abused Nigeria?
Place a curse on that.
Place a curse on the constitution. That constitution that is only designed to abuse and people of this country.
Thank you.
And enable.
The Constitution was written by Thomas Pickering and Susan Rice in 1998.
And exactly.
That's
Thank
an American
you.
version
Place
of
a
what
curse on bad
works
traffic.
here.
Place a curse on that. Oh, on
So
the,
now,
on
so
the
now
history
that
story.
people have finished out
Wait, real quick. On the history story, the history curriculum thing, we need a curriculum for financial literacy
Yes.
for our students. Because there were two private banks on World, or what was it now? World, I know it was a financial literacy day or something. It was two banks that spent a lot of money teaching about 20,000-30,000 students. Those things need to be put inside our school curriculum.
In the secondary school level, though.
We sent out a poll. People were voting. We asked them whether primary school, kindergarten, across the board,
but
financial
the beginning of this
literacy.
thing is just teach them to read and write first.
No.
First of all,
First of all, they can't read they can't.
Yes, because that's the fundamental
Kindergarten
problem.
level, you can teach a child how to earn money and how to
Excuse me,
save.
what
At
is that? They're not
kindergarten
telling you
level.
the basic problem.
What
Right.
he's saying
Oh,
is that-
before you even get to
Yes. Because they can't read it right.
Yes, that's the problem.
thanks for watching. Thank you.
But very quickly, I think the biggest issue, I think the most important part is give me some money first, and then you can start talking.
Like shout on the queue.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Teach me financial
Give me
literacy.
some
Write down the
money.
little